Thanks so much for joining me. We're seeing our first significant wildfire smoke of the summer being generated in southern British Columbia, and that's originating from a fairly large and growing complex of fires here in the Fraser Canyon, just south of Lytton, close to Boston Bar. Of course, it's been very dry in recent weeks and months with drought developing across the landscape. Forest vegetation really drying out, and with the warm, dry, windy weather on Tuesday, this complex of fires really just exploded in size, generating a ton of smoke, and a lot of that smoke billowed high into the atmosphere, where we can still see it the next day on Wednesday afternoon, traveling over northern Alberta. Lower in the atmosphere as well, we can see that smoke blowing northeastward across parts of southern BC and into western Alberta, really reducing air quality out there. And what that looks like from the air, as of Wednesday morning, my friend Matt Melnick, who's a pilot with WestJet, was flying from Tokyo to Calgary, and this is roughly over Lillooet, looking southeast down the Fraser Canyon there toward the fire. We can see the valley is just full of smoke there, as well as adjacent valleys there. This is fairly typical of the overnight hours with fires. You get more stable conditions in the lower atmosphere. The smoke tends to get trapped near the surface, as opposed to during the day when it's hot and sunny and it becomes more unstable. That smoke can get vented away from the Earth's surface. So we're seeing a lot of this across the southern interior as a result of this fire burning in the region. And this image here shared from the BC Wildfire Service of the Brunswick Creek fire on Tuesday afternoon. We can see that smoke billowing up into the atmosphere there. That's the western portion of this complex. On the eastern side of the canyon there is the Ainslie Creek fire just downstream. And of course, the smoke generated by this complex of fires was very thick, very intense. A lot of ash being lofted into the upper atmosphere, and that really darkened the skies downwind here in Kamloops. This tweet from Daniel Blanchfield showing very eerie red skies here in Kamloops late afternoon, early evening, kind of shades of 2021 there. And again, this tweet from Justin Moss at 6:45. You may not even be able to see this because of how dark it is. Almost dark as night there in Kamloops at 6:45. That ain't right. If you're on the ground in a situation like that, it's very intense, very stressful, very ominous to see it get so dark just as a result of upstream smoke plumes. Where this fire is working through is very steep terrain, and actually we can take a look at this map from firemap.live. Great resource here. We can see just how steep it is here in southwestern BC. This is the Fraser River Canyon looking north from north of Hope toward Lytton there. Very steep terrain, and that plays a role in the spread of fires. Of course, as fires spread up slopes, they can really increase their forward rate of spread, especially when combined with strong winds. And of course, as a result of that, we're seeing rapid spread. As the warm, dry, windy conditions and the steep terrain, we saw this fire really blow up on Tuesday, and so likely going to be seeing more growth in the coming days, as this fire unfortunately looks like it has a lot more green timber to work with it northeast before it runs into some older burns there from recent years. So it's going to spread differently through this terrain. If you're down here in the canyon, the winds just roar in the Fraser Canyon here northward, 60, 70 kilometer an hour gusts and hot conditions in the rain shadow of the coast mountains here, standard fare in the summertime here. So I'm not there. I can't see what's going on, but if this fire is here on the slope, likely going to be seeing cross slope spread here with those sort of these southerly winds pushing the fire northward. And you get higher, you get into the higher terrain there, the winds are going to be more southwesterly, so able to spread in the higher terrain farther to the northeast here. So crews, of course, out there working this fire. We've got 160 wildland firefighters working the fire as of Wednesday morning, 12 helicopters, 23 pieces of heavy equipment that's working to establish control lines in various places. We've also got ground crews working to establish structure protection down in the valley, because that's our priority here, keeping that fire from spreading down the valley and into communities that are below the fire, burning above them on the slopes there. This fire started, or at least was first detected, the Brunswick Creek fire on July the 2nd, and it's thought that an ember from this fire jumped across the canyon and started the Ainslie Creek fire detected first on July the 4th, and you can see just how rapidly that ballooned given the terrain and the conditions out there. Unfortunately, this fire was human caused, whether intentional or accidental, most often accidental, but sometimes intentional, doesn't matter. This is very unfortunate. You can just imagine all wildfires start as a single spark. This tiny spark can grow into this just gigantic wildfire that's just munching through forest vegetation in very short order, threatening communities, and really can reduce air quality for millions of people downwind. It's incredible how many problems that can be caused from something so preventable. So we got to be really careful out there when it's dry like this. So stressful conditions continuing here through the Fraser Canyon. And as a result, we've got a number of evacuation orders for a number of communities here. Boston Bar is under an alert as of Wednesday afternoon, but the orders to the north here as we get closer to Kanaka Bar, farther to the north, with some other alerts in there as well. Of course, the Trans-Canada Highway is closed for a stretch through there between the fires, and as well as the Chomox, if I'm pronouncing that right, the Chomox Road on the west side of the Fraser Canyon. Let's talk about the weather and how that could play a role in the spread of this fire in the coming days here. This is the National Blend of Models forecast for Lytton. Temperatures remaining sort of near normal here for the next few days, which is relatively cool, with highs in the upper 20s there. So still not very cool, and it's going to remain gusty. So this may provide very little relief here before things heat up again next week. In terms of precipitation, it's going to be fairly unsettled with Pacific moisture streaming across much of BC through the weekend, so that may moisten things up a little bit for us. But again, remembering that this area is in the rain shadow of the Coast Mountains, likely will not even get a drop from this precipitation here, continuing to be dry across southern BC based on our 7-day precipitation accumulation there. So also remaining windy. This map here is showing 700 millibar winds. That's at about 3 kilometers above sea level, so close to the height of the peaks here on the Coast Mountains. And we're seeing elevated winds in the upper levels here, in the higher terrain, I should say, as we see a fairly unusually strong southwesterly jet stream developing across Western Canada in the coming days. So through the weekend, even if it's slightly cooler and moister there, we're going to be seeing elevated winds before they finally start to die down next week, at least for a short period of time here. So crews are going to be out there dealing with Mother Nature as usual in different ways, where it's, maybe slightly cooler and moister, but it's going to be windy. Next week, it's hotter, but maybe a little bit less windy to start. So dealing with Mother Nature out there, never an easy thing, especially when fires grow so rapidly. And of course, this fire is going to continue to influence or impact air quality negatively, especially locally here in the Fraser Canyon, Thompson areas. Kamloops, unfortunately, likely going to continue to see impacts to air quality because your proximity to that wildfire. Of course, also spreading across parts of southern BC and even into central Alberta in the coming days. Reductions to air quality as a result of this single complex of fires that's likely to grow in the coming days. We've already got air quality advisories as of Wednesday afternoon through parts of southern, southwest BC, and even into the mountain parks of Alberta. And one final product that I always recommend that people look at here, this is a map from Purple Air, and I'm just going to let it reload there. It's really handy for getting a sense of what the air quality is doing. If you've got a sensor, that's excellent. Looks like the air quality is pretty good across most of Western Canada and the northern states right now, but you can see really just downstream of that fire locally, very, very poor air quality. It looks like it's roughly along the Highway 1 corridor there through southern BC and getting into Alberta's mountain parks. As we see continued warm, dry conditions in the coming days, this fire will likely continue to spread and cause continued reductions to air quality out there. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.